Hey, Scott, the election's over, so I don't know if we need to promise everybody the world anymore. But if you were, the economy was, let's say you were Treasury Secretary and you had to, the buck stops with you. When the president says, OK, we're doing tips, no taxes. We're doing Social Security, no taxes. I'm getting rid of the cap. I'm extending my tax cuts. I'm all these things and tariffs, some of them, maybe it's negotiating. But you're going to have to deal with some of those consequences. Aren't a lot of those things inflationary? And were there times where you were just like, Mr. President, or President-elect, don't promise all these things? I know there's an election, but it's not all possible to do all things for all people, is it?
Well, Joe, there's a lot to unpack there on both sides. So let's talk about first some of the tax cuts that President Trump talked about during the campaign. That's going to be a negotiation with the Republican Congress, and it looks like we did have a negotiation.
Yeah,
right.
Like, here's what I want. Okay.
Here, now I'll sign whatever you give me. It's
right.
Like.
Well, no, and look, I've already been in conversations with a lot of the Republicans who will chair those committees. And I can tell you, in the Republican Congress, especially in the House, there's a big appetite for pay-fors. And so, it will be a negotiation.
Although, Scott, that comes down to the idea that there's a big appetite for pay-fors, but I would also imagine there's not a big appetite to tussle with a reelected president who is coming in with a landslide, with a red wave, who's clearly pretty powerful on this. And a lot of the reason that many of those elected are the reason that they're going to have the majority is because of President Trump. If he really wants this, it seems to me like he can push whatever he wants in the beginning.
Well, but Becky, I can tell you the one thing he doesn't want is a replay of what we just got under Biden-Harris, because the reason Donald Trump, I would say the two reasons Donald Trump is going back to 1600 Pennsylvania is the great inflation and the squeeze, especially on working class people's real wages, and the mass unfettered immigration. So let's talk about the squeeze on wages. That you would not do a replay on the squeeze on wages because under President Trump there was real wage growth. Under Biden-Harris there was a loss of purchasing power, especially among the bottom 2 quintiles of earners who have a very different basket of goods and services. So President Trump has some very good ideas, but I guarantee you the last thing he wants is to cause inflation. And this is a problem we're seeing all over the world. I think Prime Minister Kishida in Japan was pushed out because of negative wage growth. And,
meaning some of the things that he promised he knows would be inflationary, and so he's not going to push through and follow through on some of those things?
Well, look, you can't have it both ways. You can't say a tax cut's inflationary and a tariff is also inflationary, right? Okay. So right. I don't think they're necessarily inflationary. What we're seeing, I think, today in the bond market is, I don't think the bond market is worried about a Trump 2.0 inflation. I think what you're seeing is a healthy move geared toward a growth impetus. We're going to see deregulation, which is disinflationary. We are going to see President Trump has said he wants to get energy prices down, disinflationary, and then tariffs are a one-time price adjustment. The Federal Reserve, in their Teal book in the summer of 2017, said that the Fed should look through tariffs. And my view, and I don't have a say now yet, or maybe ever, but is that I would recommend that tariffs be layered in gradually, which would the price adjustment would be over a period of time. But I think if you take that price adjustment coupled with all the other disinflationary things President Trump is talking about, that we're going to be at or below the 2% inflation target again.
Hey, Scott, personal question for you. I don't know if you can answer it or not, but just should we expect to be doing interviews like this from the lawn outside the White House in the future?
Well, I don't know if you'll be doing them with me. I'm sure you'll be doing them with somebody.
With you, Scott, with you.
Look, I'm going to do whatever President Trump asks. If he says, Scott, be better to have you on the outside. We can speak once a week, and you can critique what's going on. I'll do that. If he says I'm going to settle the war in the Ukraine, please go help rebuild the Ukrainian economy, I will do that. There have been no discussions about jobs. Important thing was to win, as we did last night. It was a real wave. I am not surprised. It's what I think I said it when I was on before. That I predicted that we'd have the trifecta, and that President Trump won the popular vote. So, as you said, he does have a mandate.